Hey guys, I'm Alex Morgan,
I'm Logan Arms.
and welcome to our very first episode of Greatest Hits. Today we will be covering the spectacular Spike Lee and his two films, School Daze and She's Gotta Have It. Now personally, these are my favorite two Spike Lee films, right behind Do the Right Thing and Malcolm X. But what's not to love about these two iconic films? To start off, Spike Lee was born Shelton Jackson Lee. Would have never thought Spike was born in Shelton, but it works because we love Spike Lee and his creative genius. He was born to Jacqueline Carroll and William James Edward Lee III, an arts and literature teacher and jazz musician and composer, respectively. He moved to Brooklyn during his childhood. So apparently he got the name Spike Lee during his childhood, but Wikipedia really explain how or why he got that nickname. So later on, he attended Morehouse and earned a degree in mass communication, and later on, he went to NYU for his master's in film and television. His career started off with one of his more popular short films, mainly Joe's Bed-Stuy Barbershop, We Cut Heads, which was his master's thesis at NYU and also won a Student Academy Award. Lee's first feature film, She's Gotta Have It, garnered much praise and success, followed by School Daze, Do the Right Thing, and Mo Better Blues. What I really love about his films is that he nails the themes right on the head, which helps establish the themes that we see a lot in black films today. Spike Lee was the first black director I ever saw in my life that made black characters, plots, and storylines so complex and multifaceted. So seeing his films is truly a chef's kiss. But let's dive into the two films for this week. So School Daze was Lee's second feature film that was released on February 12, 1988 by Columbia Pictures. I've also read that Lee based the film on his college experience. In this film, we get a lot of very important themes like colorism, social settings, toxic masculinity, and hazing, as well as hair texture, amongst other things, which I think is really important because we don't talk about it enough. And it's also a lot that we still see today. But I'll be honest with you, I never saw any movies that directly mention colorism in the 80s, so it's refreshing to see how much the theme has progressed over the years. But to get into the story, we first see Vaughn, commonly known as Dap, played by a very young Lawrence Fishburne, who's the quintessential black student activist at the fictional HBCU, Mission College. He's encouraging the community to divest from South Africa because of apartheid. Now, I don't want to delve too much into the plot, but I will make references so that I can highlight the themes. So we get into the sororities. The Gamma Rays, who are the quintessential light-skinned, straight-haired girls of the college, and they feud with the dark-skinned, natural-haired girls of the campus called the Jigaboos, which gets into the debate of who's more prettier / more beautiful.
It's not real. Say what? You heard. It ain't even real.
You wish you had hair like this.
Girl, you know you weren't even born with blue eyes.
That's right. Blue contact lenses. They're just jealous.
It's something that we'll see throughout the film, of course. But I will say that the musical number Good or Bad Hair is a bop. It's immaculate. And it's truly iconic because it's just full-out choreography, and we get to see Jasmine Guy and Tisha Campbell being their iconic and talented true selves, which I enjoy personally. And it includes a lot of golden age musical elements, which I love because I definitely am a musical theater nerd, so I'm here for it. And there are a lot of instances where Spike Lee really kind of just nails these themes like right on the head. But one theme that he kind of threw in indirectly, which I don't know if he did, because being Spike Lee, we can never tell if it was just creative genius or it's just like unconsciously. But he definitely throws in a lot about toxic masculinity, which I kind of enjoy because it's definitely a topic, like I've said before, that we don't talk about a lot. So it's just refreshing to see that. And it mainly kind of ties back into the subject of fraternities and hazing, which really highlights how men today and back then kind of glorified fraternities and how it all relates to the mistreatment of women, both real and fictional. So we kind of tie back to the wannabes and the jigaboos. So the wannabes are led by Tisha Campbell's character, Jane Toussaint, who is the girlfriend of the Gamma-fied Gamma leader, Julian, or as his title or kind of nickname for his fraternity is Dean Big Brother Almighty. And the wannabes, which Tisha Campbell's character leads, it kind of it translates to want to be, which want to be white. Which when you think about it, it's kind of cliche, but also pretty clever. So we have Jane, who's kind of like the quintessential light-skinned black girl with the blonde hair, which is an interesting character choice, I can add. But anyways, we have the Jigaboos, which consists of kind of like the darker skinned natural hair girls. And the leader of that is Rachel Meadows, who is kind of like the dark skinned foil to Tisha Campbell's character, so to speak. And she's very studious, she speaks her mind, and she's the girlfriend of Lawrence Fishburne's character, Death. Now, another thing about the film is that we see the female characters are not necessarily defined by the roles of kind of being the girlfriends, like to the male leads, which is pretty cool because it has the potential kind of possibility of delving more into like the character depth. But then again, it really just kind of ties into like the animosity between the wannabes and the jigaboos, which, I mean, it's good because we see that aspect of colorism, but then again, I would have just loved to see just more kind of like about the character depth and like their backstories and like how they felt, which you really kind of don't see a lot of. It's just kind of like in certain instances. It hasn't really changed from today's perspective, but it's just kind of unsettling to see that, I guess 40 years later, we still kind of see that today, but...
But also, when you're like in relation to that, when you were talking earlier about like masculinity and like girlfriends, and then in this subject between light skin and supposed good hair and that and natural, I think there's also like this big correlation between the two of like how the guys use their girlfriends in a sense of trying to have this different identity, or they use their girlfriends to be able to portray themselves in a certain way in that sense. Like even in the film, when Dap is talking with Rachel, she was talking to him about like how he only likes her because she's dark skinned in that sense. And I'll talk about this more a little bit later. But then when you see Dap's, antagonist of the film, or Big Brother, when he's talking and he talks to Rachel, it feels as though like he doesn't like her for her extent, for her status in that sense.
Yeah, I definitely kind of got that vibe. She's like, Rachel's smart, she's pretty. So I don't know why my man's Lawrence Fishburne did her dirty in the film. So kind of like playing into what Logan's saying, like Dad really only kind of wanted her because she was dark skinned, and it would kind of make him seem, I guess, more like he was, like, I guess, taken more seriously about being a social activist. I don't know. It's just weird. Maybe Spike was trying to play into something like, light skinned people are taken seriously because of their looks. Which, I mean, if he did do that, like I said before, it would kind of spark some kind of controversy and create a genius because, as I said million times before, Spike Lee is just that man. But I don't know, like it's just.
I felt, and even then, like it kind of is interesting, like when they're like, or when they're like in thinking about Jane and how she's being used in a sense for, not only is she being used in like kind of like to get a better status per se because she's a lighter skin or a fairer skin person, but also how she's used by the frat at the end in that scene there where he has the younger brother, or the little go. I think this is a common theme in frat, or this is I've seen in a couple of movies in frats where they all try to get with the same girl in that sense, in that scene.
Yeah, Dad definitely did need to treat Rachel better, kind of like not based off kind of like her looks, which I think it kind of plays off to this like kind of thing that I've seen a lot in just kind of relationships where it's kind of like dark skin, light skin complex relationships, which I think it's kind of weird, but also it's just kind of like you're not really dating that person like for anything else besides its like appearance and like outside looks. Like I don't know. I just felt like their relationship definitely could have been more skin deep, if you know what I'm saying.
I get you for sure.
Like, yeah, there was definitely a lot, but I just think Spike Lee really did kind of, whether it was kind of obvious or not, Spike Lee definitely just kind of, he nailed every single point and theme, which I really did enjoy. So people definitely need to talk about School Days a lot, which it's on Netflix, so if you want to watch it, go ahead and watch it. Like, it's free.
I'm pretty sure it's also on YouTube as well for free.
It's also on YouTube for free, which I did not know that. Thank you for telling me that. But yeah. But kind of delving off the topic of kind of the whole colorism complex. My last point was the wake up scene, which I thought it's pretty iconic just because like it's not your typical kind of cliche ending, which I thought was gonna be. Kudos to Spike Lee on that ending because it's immaculate. But
me,
like,
yeah, I was just gonna say, like, to me that ending was also like pretty confusing, and like I know the first time that I watched it, I didn't actually like the ending because I was like, they left, it left so many questions and it left so much like, what's gonna happen, and it wasn't like the typical, like conclusion where you get your answers and that kind of thing. But in going back to watch this film, like I liked it a lot more because of reasons you said, because it actually makes you think a little bit. Like, all right, what is this film trying to say? And it's not so much as he's trying to wrap up the storylines, maybe in a sense, but more maybe, or at least how I interpret it, is that he's trying to show you the storylines and how that can apply to you in the real life, and like how you can apply that to yourself in that sense. And that the wake up isn't really directed at the characters, but it's directed at the audience, at you, in that kind of way.
oh yeah, most definitely. Like a lot of Spike Lee films that I definitely watch end in that sort of way. I'm not sure how like I think maybe for She's Gotta Have It, which we'll talk about in a little bit, it's kind of open ended. But I know definitely for Do the Right Thing, it's definitely kind of just it's full circle in a sense, but it's also really open ended. So I thought the wake up scene was just it's really pivotal, and it should definitely be listed up on the already iconic endings if it's not. Um, but yeah, most definitely. But that's kind of my little spiel on, my thoughts and opinions about it. But Logan, what were your, you know, kind of thoughts?
Yeah, no, for sure. So when I first watched the movie, I think I watched this movie like for the first time like 2 years ago or so. I just saw it on Netflix. I didn't really know anything about it, and so I just kind of went into it, and then I watched it more recently. But that first time, something that I noticed and I really liked was how you saw these actors, or the actors that he put into the movie, because there were some really, really strong names that we know now, and to see them back then, that more in the beginning of their career too, you could see that they were still, very strong actors, with people like Lawrence Fishburne, Giancarlo Esposito, who would go on. I actually recognized him first because I'm a big Breaking Bad fan. He's in Breaking Bad as one of the guys there. And then Tisha Campbell. I knew her because of her role in Martin later on. But yeah, and then of course Samuel L. Jackson's also in there, who I don't even need to talk about his career because he's in everything basically. And then Spike Lee, obviously he's in it as well, but he's in all of his movies, which actually is another interesting choice, or not in all, but in most of his movies, which is another interesting choice that I think I like that he makes as like a director. How do you feel about that? Just kind of going off topic just a little bit, but like, how do you feel about the director putting himself in the movie?
I mean, like kind of because when I first saw it, I was like, that's kind of an interesting choice, kind of putting himself into his own movies. Because at first it kind of, I don't know why, but just like the thought of directors putting themselves into their own movies, it comes off as narcissistic to me. Like it came off as narcissistic to me. Like at, at first for some odd reason. But then I kind of had to realize Spike Lee obviously has that, that kind of talent to do that. So, if he wants to put himself in his own movies, then go ahead, Spike. I support your decision.
I think, yeah, no, I definitely, when I first saw it, I was like, why is he putting himself in his own movies? It's like, it's weird, but the thing is, just because it's not normally done, but then I think about it and it's like, why not? I mean, if you're the director of this movie and the writer of this movie, you probably know the characters better than anybody else would. And if you have the ability to play one of your characters, I think that can be a good choice that you can make. And so like going on to another point that I was thinking about in the movie, which I mentioned earlier, was the dating in the movie and the use of like how they would kind of like they use their girlfriends in a sense for status, and not only their girlfriends but their girlfriends characteristic for status in that sense. Um, so I was originally talking about, Lawrence Fishburne and his character Dap, and how he started dating Rachel, and she thought it was only because, she was darker skinned and that would give him more status. And when I was watching that and kind of thinking about it, I kind of wanted to relate it a little bit to like today on how we use social media and that kind of stuff, and how people are often used, like even celebrities nowadays use certain people for, their stat, and how it's kind of become such a common thing that I think today that we definitely use other people in a sense to promote ourselves. Like, oh, I'm posting a picture hanging around with these people, so that I'm, on a different level, or I'm on this tier or that tier. But yeah, no, so definitely that use of like how you interact with people is a big thing I thought for this movie, and like how you can relate to people and use, because I mean at the end of the day I think everybody is trying to be, the best possible selves. They're trying to reach that epitome of, where they see themselves or want to see themselves. And I think oftentimes we compare each other to other people as a way of doing that, like, oh, they're up there, or, they're doing this, I'm envy of this. And I think that this movie is a big way of like kind of showing that subtly, of just being like how we sometimes want to attach ourselves to other people, or use other people to get ahead, or show other people how ahead of them we are, in a sense.
Right, definitely.
And I think another point that I kind of wanted to bring up, another like, kind of major topic, I think, along with like colorism and that kind of thing, is going to college, actually, because in the movie there's a scene where Dap and his crew kind of go to this, not kind of, but they go to this chicken restaurant, and they're ordering, and as they're ordering, in the back, there's this group of locals just sitting at a table, and they're all kind of giving them dirty looks. And I I don't know the whole movie, but like I'm pretty sure they've never met each other before. And so they go and they get their food, they sit down, and the other table just keeps giving them dirty looks. They ask for the salt, they won't give it to them, and there's automatically some form of, static between them that just kind of, that just happened for no reason. And it got to the point where, the vibes, I guess, in the restaurant were so bad that Dap and his crew, they leave early, but they're followed into the parking lot by this group. And this group, which is led by Samuel L. Jackson, that's his character, they confront them in the parking lot, and basically they're talking about how going to call they have this one line, and I can paraphrase it in a sense. So Samuel L. Jackson says, "Y'all must think you're white. College ain't." I'm not sure if we're allowed to swear on this, but college ain't. And then he says, "Y'all will always be N-words just like us." And then Dap only responds with, "You're not, N-words."
Y'all niggas, and you gonna be niggas forever, just like us. Niggas. You're not niggas.
I found this to be like a really, really powerful scene, as it kind of just addresses how the education is seen among some of the black community.
Right.
How you felt about it?
Yeah. When you were talking about it, it was just like there was like the point where you're like they were ordering food at the KFC, and I know you haven't been like on campus yet because you're a freshman, but a lot of the times the Georgia Avenue McDonald's it's kind of ghetto, but yeah, I have definitely a lot of memories where like my friends and I go to the Georgia Avenue McDonald's. It's not experience similar to the one that Dap and his friends had with Samuel L. Jackson, but just kind of like an interesting point as to how like Samuel L. Jackson kind of instigated that kind of like that complex in a sense to like Dap and his friends about college education.
Yeah.
But I mean, it definitely didn't relate to the point at all, but it just really made me think of that.
No, it definitely relates, I think, because it's like, because this is all, it just kind of shows how this movie is like so based on real life, that within like 2 seconds you're able to think of an exact moment where it's like, this is something that I can relate from my real life to the movie. So I think it's like, it's really well done, I think, by Spike Lee in that sense to be able to, make that comparison and make that, description and then make that scene, because it's real.
Right. No, definitely. This film it really had me thinking. Like, I definitely was kind of like on my phone taking some notes. Like, oh yeah, no, this is deep. That's deep too. Like, yeah, there's definitely just a lot of talking points. I think that a lot of HBCUs can use to just kind of like make those references. Let me ask you this question: do you think it would have been like if Spike Lee kind of had placed that like those central themes like and made the the HBCU at a PWI? Do you think that would be different or like as far as just like the focus, or do you think that would kind of taken away the element of being at a HBCU and kind of like focusing on like the identity, because I do feel like they did like focus on identity in some sense.
Yeah. So like, if I like, I'm just thinking of like my own personal experience, like, because before coming to Howard, I actually went to like a super PWI boarding school up here in New England, and it was like my class had maybe I think 6 other black kids in it and that kind of thing. And the whole rest of like the 200, 300 kids in my grade were all white or.
Yeah, I can relate to that because I definitely went, like, I've been going to Catholic school my whole life. So, in my class, there were only like 17 black students, and out of like the 17, there were like 5 black girls total.
I feel you. And I think if he were to make this movie at a PWI, I feel like you couldn't see I never saw like, at least in my school, black kids being seen as individuals. I
Oh,
saw more being seen as like a group sense. So it didn't matter if you were light skinned or if you were dark skinned or if you straightened your hair or if you had braids in your hair, like you were only seen as, oh, that's one of the black kids. At least that's how it was in my school. So I think if you were to make this at a PWI, you could definitely hit the same points of colorism and what that is in the black community, but I think it would be harder to do because for one you just have to first off show that there are individuals amongst the black community at a PWI, and so it would take time, but I think you could definitely break it down, but it'd be a lot longer of a movie, I think, or a lot more complex dialogue and that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I think it being taking place at HBC really just kind of it defined that just experience because yeah, I get what you're saying about that whole point of just being another black kid because I feel like everybody that it is like everybody that has or is currently attending Howard, like they felt that. I've definitely felt that because a lot of the times I was basically like the only black girl who like I did swimming. I was the only black girl that did swimming. So it's not so much that like I was defined by like me, Alexandria, Alex Morgan. It was the black girl who did certain or like the sole black girl that just did certain activities. So I can definitely relate to your point on that. Um,